welcome to Double Overtime, Ultra-World's professional Ultimate League podcast. I'm Jenna, he's Sascha. Sascha, we have 10 games to talk about from the weekend. 4 from the Western Ultimate League's championship weekend that saw Seattle Tempest crowned the inaugural champions in the Western Ultimate League, as well as 6 games in the Premier Ultimate League as Medellin Revo Pro, I would say certainly have made their mark on the league with impressive showings in 3 games across the weekend and just yesterday, Tuesday. Lots to talk about, plenty of exciting games and footage and players. Excited to be here with you as always.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about this because it was a action-packed weekend. It was a lot of fun. First, what jersey are you wearing there, Jenna?
Oh, I am wearing a college nationals jersey from fall 2021, appropriate because fall nationals, college nationals are right around the corner. D3 nationals happening this upcoming weekend in Milwaukee. D1 nationals following those up. Also in Milwaukee over Memorial Day weekend. However, Sascha, neither of us will be there at least this weekend. But we are both going to be a little bit on the road. I will be in Stockton, California playing a disc golf tournament at the OTB Open. You're going to be in Denver for yet another continent tour game. You excited? Looking forward to being up in the mountains, the great Colorado weather in the spring?
I am excited to go and to be with my fellow continent tour players and friends. Not super excited to play. Not because I don't want to play. Of course, I do want to play. But the weather there this weekend is not looking very fun.
No.
But let's look at tomorrow's weather of Denver.
Let's do it.
88 degrees.
Tomorrow being Thursday.
For tomorrow. Tomorrow's Thursday, yes. Correct. Yeah.
As of recording.
Today's Wednesday. We're recording Wednesday. Yes. So tomorrow's weather, 88 degrees.
Nice.
Fine.
Yeah.
Great. That's awesome. Friday's weather, the high of 44 with rain and snow. And wow, I'm looking at this and they're projecting 5 inches of snow.
On Friday?
On Friday. 5 inches.
When are you flying in,
of
Sascha?
Rain and snow. So I'm flying in Friday night. I will be there around 11:30 Friday
Fingers
night.
crossed your flight gets there.
Yeah, for real. And now Saturday, we're looking at a high of 38 on Saturday.
Toasty.
With an inch of snow and rain. And so
Enjoy.
It's going to be
so fun.
It's going to be a very interesting weekend.
We just talked about
the weather for
Sorry. I was going to say I feel like we just talked about weather in the last subs only segment, if I remember correctly. And I feel like I asked the question, have you ever played in snow or not? Or would this be your first time?
Oh, I definitely have.
Utah, right?
Did most of my playing career in Utah, so I've definitely played in snow.
So this will not be new to you, but for other folks who maybe are not as accustomed to high altitude snow, good luck, all y'all continent tour players who will be there this weekend.
Shout out the Texas and Arizona people coming up to play in the snow.
I mean, I'm sure it'll be a good game regardless. Weather conditions are always tough to deal with. In Stockton, California, which is in the middle of the Central Valley in California, I will be having the opposite issue because over the weekend it's a 3-day disc golf tournament, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It's supposed to be high in the high 80s on Friday, and then highs in the low 90s for both Saturday and Sunday. I am already planning various ways to keep myself hydrated across 18 holes of disc golf on a rather long course. We will be playing through some of the trees,
that's hot.
So that'll help a little bit. And it's supposed to be very windy on Friday, which will make for difficult disc golf, but at least slightly cooler weather than it would otherwise be. But yeah, next week on the show, we'll just have to debrief how our radically different weather experiences were. Folks, I promise we don't only talk about weather. It's not that classic. We have literally nothing else to talk about, so we just talk about the weather. It's just felt appropriate to do so. Anything else, Sascha? Yeah, should we talk about other things besides the weather?
Yeah, we should talk about Frisbee.
Let's do it. Where should we start?
All right, we'll start with the WUL Championship weekend this weekend. And Jenna, you were there. You were doing some reporting on the ground for Ultiworld, doing the tweeting for all that. So bring it. Tell us how it went. Tell us everything.
I thought it went really well. San Diego has hosted quite a number of great ultimate events. This weekend was yet another of those. Home team San Diego Super Bloom did not end up getting all of the wins as I had picked, but they did make it to the final. The semifinal games, which were Saturday afternoon, evening, unfortunately, not the closest of games. The first one between Seattle and Arizona was particularly not close, which we had sort of talked about. But, you wanted to give Arizona a chance. It was 4-0 Seattle after 4 points. And there were two other points one in the second half and one in the second quarter and one in the fourth quarter where Seattle went on 4 runs again. 24-12 was the final score, Seattle doubling up. Arizona, it was tough to see, but Arizona did bounce back. Well, spoilers for what we're about to talk about in the third place game, where they faced Oregon Onyx, who had to play hometown team San Diego Super Bloom. That game also didn't finish particularly close. It was 24-15 with a 12-8 score at the end of the first half and 24-15 finish. So it was a 12-7 second half. All in all, Seattle, San Diego looked by far the better teams as indicated by the score. Some standout performances across the board. Seattle continuing to show their depth on Saturday, had 12 different goal scorers for those 24 goals. On Sunday, they had 13 different goal scorers. That info courtesy of West Ultimate League Insider. And for San Diego, Alex Diaz, who we've talked about quite a bit, real engine for San Diego, 7 goals and 2 assists. She contributed to 9 of San Diego's 24 goals in either a goal or an assist. Alex Diaz was monster in the semis.
That's a lot.
It is a lot. And Arizona, Oregon, maybe disappointing performances in the semis, but except for a fun day 2, a close third place game between Arizona and Oregon. Arizona seeming the more energetic team. Both teams really were wanting to huck it. Arizona was slightly more successful. Also partially because they had Cody Lippincott just absolutely tracking down huck after huck. I was in the booth live tweeting and hanging out by the commentators. And I kept saying, I feel like we've had 4 or 5 Sports Center worthy moments, and half of those at one point felt like they were from Cody. Final score in the third place game, 17-14 Arizona, showing that, yes, they did indeed actually belong in championship weekend. A little bit disappointing for Oregon, but still, inaugural season, didn't play in the Winter Cup, still made it to championship weekend, a successful season nonetheless. And then the final was basically what we'd hoped it would be. Seattle started off a little hot with a couple of breaks, and then went back and forth and back and forth. The team's just not really giving an inch. 9-8 at half, and then Seattle just able to pull away a little bit in the third quarter, pretty even in the fourth. San Diego tried an interesting strategy of trying to pull out of bounds short to try and stop the clock, because in the Western Ultimate League, once it gets past, I think, 2 minutes on the clock stops whenever the disc is out of bounds. But you give Seattle 20 yards to work with, they're going to be clean enough to not turn it over. And so eventually closed it out. I think 18-15 was the final. So Seattle, undefeated. Someone's going to have to knock them off next season, but it's going to have to be next season.
Yeah, congrats to Seattle for the undefeated season and winning the whole thing. And congrats to all the other teams that were there for very successful seasons, making it to championship weekend. Real quick, a stat that is just mind-blowing. In the final for San Diego Super Bloom, Kayla Helton threw 5 assists and got 8 blocks in that one game.
Line.
That's nuts.
It was nuts. And when San Diego was behind, because they were behind most, if not all, of the game against Seattle, it was like very clearly there were a number of players that were just pretty clearly doing their absolute best to keep San Diego in the game. Shout out in particular, and this was in both the semifinal and the final. Julia Salvacion just put on an absolute show, layout goal after layout goal, including one that was thought to be a goal, but then was actually called back for a travel, which was disappointing.
Rough. That's rough.
Yeah, it was brutal, but it was so good. And yeah, just impressive performances all around. The level of the Western Ultimate League and its players was absolutely on display. And I think in the semifinals, it was, I think, far more about Seattle and San Diego just being too good, too clinical, especially for Seattle. For Oregon and Arizona to really keep up. Just too many turnovers, too many break opportunities. I think if I remember correctly from the broadcast, it was 20 break chances to 2 break chances at one point in the Seattle-Arizona game.
Wow.
And it was it was pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Seattle is just so impressive. And as we've said,
Clean.
super balanced. Contributions across the board. Sam Rodenberg chipping in goals as we'd expect, 4 goals in each game on the weekend. They're the team to beat. I mean, right? And we both tried to pick against them and it didn't work.
They did not. But they're good. they're very good. So I think these other teams are, I mean, they've got the target on their back. You know, these other teams are going to be, training hard, possibly recruiting more players to be able to bring down the champs. Yeah,
and it's something, too, where it's not like Seattle was blowing out the competition regularly. 1-point win against Utah, 2-point win against Oregon, 3-point win against San Diego, and it was a 3-point margin again in the final against San Diego. So the talent's there, the capacity's there, and so I think it would be a bad bet to bet against Seattle going undefeated again, simply because I think the teams are too good, the players are too good, and as good as Seattle is and was, I think given another year, especially since talking to players on Seattle and seeing them on the weekend, Seattle was running a very consistent 3-line system, which is often teams run O-line, D-line. Seattle was, we have 3 lines and we just rotate through them pretty much like clockwork. And so the lines get a lot of playtime with each other. And that's not to say that it's inherently better than doing an offensive defensive line. Just they had a lot of flow, chemistry, trust in each other, and, give teams another year to gel, to figure out their systems. I think there's absolutely a chance. I would actually probably bet good money that Seattle would not go undefeated a second straight season. I think that's not possible. And also, just the confidence of some of the other teams. I was talking to San Diego coach Angela Wells before the final, and she noted that San Diego, that Super Bloom had not only lost to Seattle up to that point, but had actually only lost the first half to Seattle, and then won the second half of that game per her recollection. Which, yeah, I mean, Super Bloom were there. They just couldn't finish it, and Seattle was too clean in the end to upset at that point.
Yeah. And I mean, I think everybody should go and watch these games. They're great. Great plays on each side. And but if you don't have time to watch the full game, shout out Andrew Lynch, who's been doing all of the highlight videos for the entire season. And like he has these two semifinal games up, and one of them, the Seattle Arizona game, is 9 minutes and 20 seconds long, and the Oregon San Diego semifinal is 12 minutes and 50 seconds long. So like lots of great plays in both games in just semifinals. Can't wait to see what the finals ones.
And just because the games weren't particularly close in the end in the semifinals, that doesn't mean that there weren't outstanding plays across the board. Again, because there are amazing outstanding players who were doing incredible things. Just that it happened that Seattle took advantage of a lot of the opportunities, most of the opportunities that Arizona gave up for all of those break chances, and San Diego just slowly building their lead throughout the game, and Oregon never really able to get the momentum needed to pull off that upset. Although, Sascha, you picked Oregon for it, so calling it an upset might be a little bit much. But I mean, San Diego, Super Boom, we're playing at home, so
yeah. Yeah, so that's it for the Western Ultimate League this year.
That is it.
We're done. Season's over.
I think we'll
unfortunately
still plan to try and talk about some of the league things as we know them, as we hear them. If there are any major updates or moves or what have you. But that pretty much closes the book on the Western Ultimate League in terms of their weekend. Just in general, I think on whole, a very successful, arguably hugely successful season. All the games happened.
Very successful.
You had the storyline of an undefeated team carrying throughout the season while teams tried to take shot after shot to try and take them down. You had competitive games, so every team won at least a game. And if they were, say, Utah, the team that only won a game, there were plenty of opportunities. There were close games. Utah only lost by 1 to Seattle, as mentioned. Like, the talent is there, the ability is there, the setup is there for success. And now it's just a matter of trying to build on the momentum, build on the success of this season for the Western Ultimate League in terms of fundraising, in terms of reaching out to sponsors, trying to be like, hey, this is really cool. You should support us. This is important. And our athletes are amazing. And I really hope that at least one, if not multiple, of the highlight plays from the weekend end up on SportsCenter because they absolutely deserve it. With one of Cody Lippincot's layouts, it's been said on Twitter, but like you just watch it like over and over and you're like, that disc is like 20 yards out from her. There's no way. And then makes the effort, gets under it just enough to save it. Jamie Erickson had a layout grab for a score off of a tipped block disc. Oh, and oh my God, how have I not? Cynthia Thomas with a freaking greatest off of a Mac.
Yeah, that was incredible.
Just I talked to her. I talked to Cynthia on Sunday before the third place game, and I was like, "What happened? Can you even try to describe to me?" how that went. And she's like, I just, the disc was up and didn't, she like looking at my notes from the interview. Like, really didn't want to turn it over. I went for it, grabbed it. Couldn't necessarily tell if I was in and out. Just went with the prayer, threw it backwards, and had a teammate right there to catch up without a beat. Like, pure effort, I just don't want to turn it over. So I'm just going to give it a shot. And it just spectacular play. Heads up play, too, to be like, well, it's there. Here's the opportunity. Might as well give it a shot. And managing to have the skill to toss it back is just incredible. Shout out Cynthia Thomas for one of the most just
for sure
brain-bending plays of the weekend. Here's the thing. We could just keep talking about highlight plays because there's so many.
There's so many. I'm in a group me with Cynthia from so all of the people, all the players from the Continent Tour are in one big group me. And in this group me, she said, "I would like to announce my retirement from Ultimate." That was easily the coolest thing I have ever done / will do on a field.
I mean, it was pretty incredible. And then there are also the highlight plays that didn't count for anything. Like Julia Sebastian had an amazing layout catch that was called back for a travel on Alex Diaz, which looking back at the footage, it's a travel, but just barely. And it was it was so good. And it was so good that it made the scoreboard wrong because people just assumed that was a score. And then San Diego scored again anyway. Yeah. And so it got double counted for a little bit. And then there's Helen Eifert, who was called out the back, even though if you look back at the footage, and I was arguing very strongly in the booth, silently arguing to not disturb the great set of commentators that Helen was in. Sure enough, looks like she was in. So yeah. Also,
a lot of great.
Oh, so
highlights.
Many. Also shout out the commentator crew. Manisha Slab, Dariani, Katie Kilbrew, and Jody Mako Moore. All three of them, great chemistry. I love Slap's energy constantly, just constant motor when she's on commentary, especially doing play-by-play.
All right, final standings for the Western Ultimate League. We have the Seattle Tempest in first place, and then San Diego Super Bloom in second, followed by Arizona Sidewinders in third, then Oregon Onyx in fourth. And that's from championship weekend. And the other three that couldn't make it the championship weekend, but in their order is San Francisco Falcons, Los Angeles Astra, and then the Utah Wild.
Yeah. So, and here's the thing. I feel okay, let's assume we don't know this, but let's assume that it's just those same 7 teams. Maybe there'll be more teams added before 2023. It's possible. But if it's only those 7 teams, Sascha, how many do you think repeat appearances for championship weekend? If it's just the same 7, how many repeat? Over, under 1.5.
It's
over,
so
under
hard
1.5.
I would say over.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we'll see at least 2 of the teams back in the championship.
Maybe I should have made it 2.5. That might have been the better bet. 1.5 feels a little generous.
That would have been harder.
Well, because okay, one if you're assuming 2 teams make it back, then if it was 1, then it would be a full shift with 7. So I should have set the line differently, but yeah, I think at the moment you have to pencil Seattle in,
that line.
Right? You can probably pencil San Diego in, and the other 2 is a little more up for grabs. But also it's possible that you could see a very significant shift. I guess 1 is also guaranteed. That line should have been 2.5. That was silly of me. Because 1's guaranteed to stay if you only have 7 teams. I'll work on the over-under line setting. Not as experienced at it as some of the other Old Tour podcast hosts. Anything else? Picks-wise, I went 2-2 picking the semifinal results right, but not getting the third place game or the final correct. Sascha, you went 1-3, getting the Seattle semi-win correct, and then kind of whiffing on the rest, unfortunately.
Yep. That's been my my MO this year.
Yeah, a little rough. That gives me a +6 margin through the Western Ultimate League Championship weekend games. Anything else, Sascha, about the Western Ultimate League this season? That was, again, we will be setting the league, Western Ultimate League, down for the time being. And it's going to be pretty much PUL here on out for at least the next 3-4 weeks until the PUL is also done.
Yeah, I thought it was an incredibly successful season for the WUL. Yeah, they did an incredible job with everything. Everything was great, and I loved it, and can't wait for next year.
Yeah, awesome job across the board. Shout out! I sent a tweet about this on Sunday, but shout out the players, the coaches, the volunteers, the observers, the various staff and team boards, and the league board, and etc., etc., etc. That season doesn't happen without everyone involved, everyone's contributions. And I can't wait for 2023, especially as someone who's based on the West Coast, because now there's no more pro ultimate that I really care about. Sorry, Oakland Spiders, particularly nearby me until we get back to 2023. So again, congratulations, Seattle Tempest, undefeated Western Ultimate League inaugural champions. With that, we will take a quick break. When we come back, we are talking PUL, kicking off what again will be a majority PUL double overtime season the rest of the way going forward. 6 games for us to review. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Double Overtime. We're talking everything Premier Ultimate League. Sascha, 6 games on the calendar this past weekend, well, including the game last night between Raleigh and Medellin. All things considered, a very good weekend if you are Medellin Revo Pro. 3 wins on the spin, close across the board against New York, DC, and Raleigh. Other games, 2 tape delayed, one of which Minnesota Strike won 16-6 over Austin Torch in Minnesota. Portland Rising continued their undefeated season so far, 17-11 over Columbus Pride. My championship weekend pick getting worse and worse by the week. And Milwaukee, who you are repping.
I am.
Shout out Caitlin Atlanta Rowland. 22. Shout out. 22-11, doubled up. Mox doubling up Seoul. Sascha, where should we start? Should we start with Revo? Work our way backwards? A little bit in time, since they were the most recent team to play against Raleigh. Yeah.
So, Revo going on the road, playing three games in 4 days. Is that right? Is it 4 days? I believe so, if I'm not mistaken. The 14th, 15th, and 17th. Yes, yep. 3 games in 4 days. Came out and played a pretty tight game with New York Gridlock. And then they hit the road immediately after, went to DC, played a tight game with DC. Then they hit the road, and 2 days later, played a decently tight game with Raleigh. They're good. They're just as good as we thought they were going to be. Shout out Khalif El Salam had a tweet today that said, so DC and Raleigh have been crushing in the PUL, and then Revo comes in and beats them both in a doubleheader. ¿Qué pasa? And I just said, Revo is really good.
Yeah.
It's
true.
They're great.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had.
I was just gonna say, looking back at the scores.
Yeah, we had the.
I was looking back at the score.
It's fine. Okay.
Oh, we're on the same page, y'all. Tonight, it's going great.
Pause. Okay. Go ahead. You go ahead.
I was gonna say, looking at the scores, I was again, as mentioned earlier, at the Western Ultimate League Championship weekend, I was tracking, keeping an eye on some of the scores, and was seeing at one point that DC was up 9-4 on Medellin. And then the Revo Pro brought it all the way back. So, like, serious resilience. And, you know, game 2 of a back-to-back, just incredible to bring it back, finishing 15-14. Like, down 9-4, and then going on a, that 11-5 run to finish it. Just that's supremely impressive.
That's incredible. Their defense is very good. The entire team is very fast and very athletic. We saw the return of Elizabeth Mosquera to competitive professional play. That was really exciting. You know, one of the top pullers in the world. Like I love watching her pull the disc. It's incredible. We also, you know, saw Valeria Cardenas and again prove why she's, you know, a top 3 thrower in the world in all divisions. And of course her sister Manu also showing like why she's a top player in the world. Like there are so many players on this Revo team that we can talk about. One player that I was not really, you know, aware of before this season and has been incredible is Jimena Montaña. She's everywhere on the field. She gets goals, she gets blocks, she gets assists. She's everywhere and is a lot of fun to watch.
Pretty sure Mena played with, need to double check this, with New York Bet.
Okay.
This past club season. So yeah, but I mean, just included in the long list of just incredible, talented players that are part of that Revo Pro team, as you just said. And I think it is very notable, to Cleef's point, that DC and Raleigh have looked like arguably the best teams in the league so far. Before this weekend, we knew that obviously Revo Pro has the talent, has the players to do it, and they beat Milwaukee and Medellin, but we weren't quite sure how it would stack up. And for them to go 3-0 and come back, and certainly that DC game just speaks to their talent level. I think we're going to talk more about the games coming up this weekend. Their games are against Atlanta and Nashville. I think arguably, maybe not even arguably, significantly easier opponents. No shade
for sure
to Atlanta or Nashville, but New York, DC, and Raleigh have been some of the better teams. And if Revo managed to get through that gauntlet of 3 in a row, I think they will probably be just fine against Atlanta and Nashville. Give me a little bit of my picks away.
And I think the most impressive part is that they did that in 4 days.
Yeah.
Like they played, you know, the two of the best teams in the league, like within a few days of each other. And, you know, on top of their traveling, you know, they're coming up from Colombia and everywhere else in the country that these players are living. And they came, like, yeah, the travel time, like, it's incredible. They're great.
Yeah. It's just impressive, and we will expect to see them in a championship weekend. To be determined who they will be joined by, but Portland Rising certainly making a case for themselves, remaining undefeated, beating Columbus by 6, albeit at home in Portland, Maine. But still, this Rising team, and the game was tape delayed, so we don't have a lot of details on how it all went down. But you would think that they continue to be a threat, albeit in a very crowded East Division. But those games in the final weekend against New York and DC looming ever larger to determine who might make championship weekend. Although Still a little unclear how exactly that's all going to get sorted, but we'll see.
Yeah, we will see. We still don't know very much, if anything at all. Yeah,
we have two more games.
Yeah, those 2 games for Portland are very, very important. And even if they go out and, lose to DC, if there is the algorithm, the algorithm can help them. We don't know if they're using the algorithm or not, but if you lose a very close game to DC, then that algorithm will help them a lot, because that's just how it works.
Still, they have I think it's 3 more games left in their season. 1 at home against Nashville, and then the 2 away games, as mentioned. Given that DC already has 2 losses, 2 single point losses to Revo Pro and to Radiance, if Portland loses to DC in that final weekend but beats New York, Portland will end up with a better record, assuming they beat Nashville. If they beat Nashville and they beat New York and then lose to DC, they're going to have a better record. And unless there's something different about what we have been told or understand about how the playoff spots are going to be determined, if that scenario plays out, it is the top finisher in each of the 3 divisions, and then the best second place team, and DC won't be in second. Again, assuming all the results happen as they do. But it wouldn't shock me if Portland, based on their season so far, wins against Nashville and New York. I don't think it's out of the question by any means.
Yeah, I know someone ran the algorithm the best they could. It looks like Elliot Alexander. So shout out Ryan Kindle and Elliot Alexander for giving us all this information from their Twitter pages. Elliot Alexander ran the USAU numbers, and this is before the Raleigh and Medellin game from yesterday, and it looks like DC is in the 2nd place spot, even with 2 losses. So we don't know. We just don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, is it going to be something where is it the best team that doesn't automatically qualify per the algorithm? Because in a situation where, say, which this is just going to cause all sorts of chaos, but that's what happens sometimes when you have an unbalanced schedule. And Portland in particular doesn't play Revo Pro, while New York and DC both had to, along with Raleigh. You could have a situation where, again, we're guessing, but if it is top 3 division winners and then the best non-top finisher, Portland could go 5-1 and lose out on the algorithm to DC. Albeit in that situation, if it's 5-1, then then Portland has the loss to DC, and so then it's kind of head to head. But you could also have a situation where if it is the best 2nd place team, then Portland could get in over DC, despite DC's only losses potentially at that point, hypothetically,
to the
being by 1
teams.
Point to 2 teams that have made championship weekend.
Yeah.
Either way, this is the thing with the East Division. It was always going to be a mess. We knew this.
Yeah.
It's just how much of a mess it was going to be.
Yeah. And what if Portland beats DC and Gridlock and Nightshade? What if they go undefeated on the season?
And what if Revo Pro goes undefeated on the season?
But then the algorithm goes into DC's favor and Portland,
and it's the best team
because they would have the best the best algorithm.
Yeah. If it's the best non-automatic qualifier.
Yeah.
Then you could theoretically have a team that went undefeated. I would be surprised if Portland went undefeated and still lost out on the algorithm against a DC team that would be 3-3 at that point. But I see your point.
But it could happen. It could happen. Depending on like
happen.
what the scores are for games. It could happen. Yeah,
yeah. I mean, if we want to continue to be speculative, let's talk about the Midwest Division, which I feel like we have neglected to talk about so far. Which is to say, okay. I mean, we talked about their scores, but right, we have Minnesota and Milwaukee both winning, both pretty significantly. A 10-point win for Minnesota over Austin, and an 11-point win for Milwaukee over Atlanta. That leaves those two teams at 2-2, tiebreaker of some kind, and it currently still leaves Indy with a 2-1 record sitting at the top of the division, which is arguably courtesy. We don't know how this game would have played out, but arguably because the game against New York, which they were losing, Indy was losing to New York, didn't finish, therefore no potential second loss. Therefore, Indy is currently in the driver's seat, albeit more games to happen in the Midwest Division, so there's going to be more crossover and more opportunities for Minnesota, Milwaukee, and Indy to all go at each other. Notably, no mention of my championship weekend pick, Columbus Pride. Poor already scuffed championship weekend pick. Because this coming weekend, Indy will play at Milwaukee. And then the weekend after that, Memorial Day weekend, Milwaukee plays at Minnesota. And then in the final weekend of the season, Indy plays at Austin, while Minnesota gets to welcome Radiance into their home. So I think the Midwest is arguably the most interesting division. We're assuming that Raleigh finishes out the South Division comfortably at this point. But it'll be interesting in the next few weeks, and somehow we only have like 3 weeks left of the PUL season, which seems way too short, but time has just flown since week one and first week we started this podcast.
Yeah, a lot of things can happen. There's one thing we do know about this league is that a lot of the time, like we're wrong a lot of the times on our picks. We're like, oh yeah, this team's gonna do really well, and then the other team wins. Like
it's true.
It's very hard to tell, who's going to do well and who's not. Who's gonna have a bad day? Who's gonna have a good day? And so it's gonna be an exciting finish, I think.
Yeah, well. One more highlight before we move on to our picks review and next week's picks. There are plenty of highlights from the Revo Pro games. Encourage you to go watch those, check those out. The one that's been particularly doing the rounds, Momola Cardenas stopping on an absolute dime to lay out for a disc and then dropping it in on a forehand hook to Mosquera. When I saw that, like, the throw is good. The throw is very good. My jaw just dropped when I saw the change in direction, the athleticism needed, and the awareness to just be like, oh, all of a sudden the disc is coming my way. Heads up, awareness, stop, pivot, move. And then the touch on the throw, the vision to put it, just... Mosquera didn't even have to slow down. It was perfectly in stride. The throw was immaculate. The vision was immaculate. The athleticism was off the charts. Manu is one of the best players. You said it earlier. One of the best players in the world. Showed it, as we have seen time and time again. But that play in particular was spectacular because the throw was really good, and I have seen a lot of those that are very good like that. I have seen very, very, very few players be able to chop step that quickly and lay out and get the disc and pop up and put that. Just incredible. Incredible, Mono.
Yeah, another incredible highlight from that game is shout out 10-yard backhand for clipping a lot of these for us. Is I can't see who threw it, but a Revo player was throwing a huck to Manu, and Manu had 3 yards on her defender, but her defender was Sarah Mextroth. And Sarah Mextroth chased her down, got in front of her for the layout block. And it was one of the coolest things I've seen in that game.
Yeah. And I mean, two of the best in the world. Mex and Manu going at it. Like, that's what you want. And we said it with the Western Ultimate League Championship weekend. Just amazing players doing amazing things. Same in the PUL. Amazing players doing amazing things. Same across both of these leagues. Revo Pro, so good. Shouldn't have doubted them. We both went 4-2 on the weekend, actually, which leaves me at +6 overall. We both ended up picking DC for the win in the Revo Pro Shadow game. And then I correctly picked that Revo Pro would win against Radiance. But then I missed on the Austin, Minnesota result, you getting the point with Minnesota's 10-point win against Austin. So still +6 overall. You're running out of time a little bit, my friend, but still time for you to catch up.
There's
still possible.
We've got 3 weeks plus championship weekend. There's time.
Yeah, I mean, if we're counting our championship weekend picks, I'm pretty sure I'm already at a deficit because odds are looking very, very long for Columbus to have any shot of making it to championship weekend at this point.
Yeah.
Still TBD on the rest. Although I think your picks for the East were like Revo Pro and DC, so I think you're going to be just fine on those picks. Well, TBD on DC. But end of season predictions. You had Raleigh.
Oh, there it is.
Wait, where'd it go? Oh, there it is. Yeah, Raleigh, Milwaukee, DC, and Medellin.
In Revo.
And I did Raleigh, Milwaukee, DC, and Columbus. So basically, I'm guaranteed to lose a point to you. At least. At least one on championship weekend. So really, it should be, well, okay, I'm not guaranteed. Maybe there's a chance in the crowded Midwest Division. But
That's true.
I don't think
so. Well, no, you picked Milwaukee too.
I know, but unless Columbus magically makes it, then I don't think that's going to be possible for me to make up that point. So arguably, it should just be +5.
All right, then. Well, let's do our picks for this weekend then.
Let's do it.
All right, so first off, we got Revo playing Atlanta in Nashville. Who you got, Jenna?
I mean, Medellin. Revo Pro.
Yep.
No question.
Easy peasy. And then we'll keep with Medellin, and we got Medellin playing Nashville in Nashville as well. Who you got?
Medellin
as well for me. And now we have Atlanta at Nashville. Doing another little tournament weekend in Nashville this weekend. It's pretty fun. I am going to pick Nashville for this one.
Okay. Home team. They've looked pretty good. I will also pick them.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Atlanta. It's just not been your season. It's fine. You're rebuilding. You have lots of young players. It's going to happen. Just maybe not this year. New York at Austin. Austin finally returns home after 3 straight road games. Gridlock or Torch? Sascha, who you got?
I am picking Gridlock.
Okay.
I think if they play the same sort of game that they played against Medellin, that they will do very well.
I agree. I mean, let's be real. There's no incentive in terms of the picks for me to necessarily disagree with you. The more we align, the less opportunities there are for you to pick up points.
You're the worst.
I will offer you a chance to get points back. Indy at Milwaukee. I'm going to pick Milwaukee. You're repping them with your jersey, but I think that they will do just fine at home. Indy 2-1 record, but a number of those games at home. So We'll see. Sasha, you gonna pick different than me for the final one?
No.
Lockstep this week. Absolute lockstep.
Man. It's tough.
Well,
It's tough.
we'll see how the games play out. We'll be keeping an eye on the games from our respective locales in the western half of the U.S. Me trying to survive the sweltering heat, and you trying to survive the cold and wind and driving rain. And hope you can at least make it to Denver. I hope that you can at least get there, that there aren't transportation issues flying there. Highlight of the week,
nice.
There's so many.
I can't.
We can't
honestly,
choose.
I can't choose
There's
one.
just
I'm
highlight of the week is the highlight packages from Andrew Lynch and the clips pulled by 10-yard backhand. That's our cop out.
Done deal. We are copping out of choosing.
It's just so many
and saying, great job,
so
everybody
many
else,
things.
for doing our job for us.
The number of just layout grabs that had all of us in the booth just like jaws dropping, standing up from our seats was a lot in the course of 4 games down in San Diego.
Yeah.
Anything else, Sasha?
And nope. That's it.
All right. That will do us for this week's episode of Double Overtime. If you're a subscriber, ultraworld.com/subscribe. Stick around. We are going to be giving a little bit of an inside look on our experiences, especially my recent experience doing and being at the Western Ultimate League Championship weekend, what it takes to put on these games. If you've been watching the games from home for the Western Ultimate League or the Premier Ultimate League, what it takes to make stream the games happen. If you aren't aware, the answer is a lot of work and a lot of time. So we'll be talking about that for subscribers in our subs only bonus segment. For the rest of y'all, we'll catch you next week. Been Jenna, he's been Sasha. Bye.